Welcome to the Leading Life Podcast, the place where leadership meets real life. Here is where we talk about leading with intention, living with clarity, and getting better results for the people we serve every single day. If you're ready to grow, you're in the right place. Let's go. Right now on today's episode, Leadership 101, this is your leadership starter kit. You are tuned into the Leading Life Podcast, where we talk about what it takes to grow, lead, and live with purpose. I'm your host, Andy Zook, and each episode here is designed to give you simple, real-world tools to help you show up as your best self in work and in your life. I started this podcast because I care deeply about the people who work for us on our teams, and then help influencing the leaders responsible for them. Everything I share comes from over 35 years of leading, coaching, mentoring, and motivating teams. You are listening to me because I have led a successful leadership career where I have grown a considerable amount of talent and led teams to success. I work my way up from the bottom, often learning the hard way to become the best leader I could be. So why this episode matters to you is that people want to get started in leadership, but they often don't know how. And so this episode is going to give you a great foundation and have you dig into some of the essentials you will need to start leading people to the best of your ability. And so today's episode really is a big one. You know, we've talked a lot about different concepts on the podcast, but we've never just really said, okay, this is Leadership 101. Whether you're brand new to leadership or you just got promoted or whether you've been leading for years, but no one actually spent time to teach you how, this episode is for you. Because here's the truth. Most people don't say out loud. Most leaders were often promoted because they were good at their job, not because they were really trained to lead people to begin with. And the gap, well, that's where frustration, burnout, turnover, and broken cultures are born. So today I'm giving you the fundamentals, the mindset, the principles, and the daily behaviors that separate title holders from the true leaders. There'll also be a follow-up episode to this that I think will be instrumental in your journey. It wasn't mine. That's going to be the 5 practices of exemplary leadership by Kouzes and Posner. I want to ask you a simple question before we dive in. Why do you want to lead? Yeah, I want you to dig deep down inside. Why do you want to become a leader? You know, if you listen to me on the regular, then you know I've asked you this before. And I'm not going to question your motivations in any way. There is no judgment coming from me. But why exactly do you want to lead others? I need you to really think about that first and really answer that in your head. I'll be honest, my answer has evolved over the years, but I challenge you to dig into this. And if your answer is that you're looking to make a difference for others and help people, give people direction rather to be successful, then I think you're really in the best place to start. Other answers are okay, but I would really love for you to get in touch with your personal why. And just for reference, here's some of what the data says out there, because 70% of leaders are promoted because they were high individual performers, not because they demonstrated leadership capability. They often had strong technical skills, consistent results, they were reliable, and they had tenure. But according to research by Gallup, this is one of the primary reasons managers struggle, because performance does not equal leadership. Roughly 50 to 60% of people pursue leadership primarily for higher pay, job security, status, and career mobility. There's nothing wrong with that. But when the money or the title is the only driver, leadership effectiveness can start to drop. About 30 to 40% of aspiring leaders are motivated by decision-making power, authority, and influence over outcomes. And this can have 2 very different directions. Healthy influence, which is vision, your impact and responsibility, or maybe a more unhealthy control, which is micromanaging or ego or fear-based leadership. And the motive matters more than the position. Remember that. Only 25 to 30% of leaders report entering leadership because they generally wanted to develop people, mentor others, and build a strong culture. Few go in to make a difference in lives, but these leaders statistically have higher engagement scores. They lower their turnover, they have stronger trust, and they build long-term performance, which I think we're all driving for, right? We're all striving for better long-term performance. And also, one of the most common but least talked about reasons that people get into leadership is no one else stepped up. So that includes high performers filling a gap or leadership inheriting teams unexpectedly, or accidental managers. Those leaders will often say, and I've heard people say it to myself, oh, I never planned on leading people. I wasn't prepared for this. I was just trying to help. This wasn't really intentionally where I wanted to go. So with supporting coaching, many of those become excellent leaders, but only about 1 in 3 leaders feel truly prepared for leadership when they step into the role. And yet over 50% of employees have left a job specifically because of their manager, not the work itself. So again, you get really 2 types of leaders out there. Accidental, they were promoted for results, or they had minimal training and they learned by trial and error, which, we all do a little bit. But then there was intentional leaders that choose growth. They sought the feedback they needed. They studied leadership, which I think is instrumental. And then most of all, the most beautiful trait of all that will help you in your career is they practiced humility. Intentional leaders outperform accidental leaders every time, regardless of their personality. All right, so let's dig in. Let's build your leadership foundation. You know the watch-outs out there. Let's talk about how you can get started. Section 1, what leadership actually is and what it's not. So let's really clear this up. Leadership is not your title. It's not your authority. It's not your seniority, and it's not how many years with a company. I get crazy when I hear people talk about how many years they've been with a company. I believe that really means nothing. Leadership is influence. If people trust you, follow you, listen to you, and feel better after interacting with you, then you are leading. If they comply out of fear or obligation or just get that paycheck, that's not leadership, that's just control. And here's the line I want you to remember. Leadership is the ability to positively influence others, especially when no one's watching. Probably the best definition of leadership comes from Kuz and Posner. Leadership is the art of mobilizing others to want to struggle for shared aspirations. Let's do it again. Leadership is the art of mobilizing others to want to struggle for shared aspirations. What are words that stand out to you when you hear that? For me, mobilizing. I think that's a big part of it. Art, the word art, leadership is the art. I think leadership is an art. I love especially the part that says want to struggle. Like, how do you get people to want to struggle? Leadership is the art of mobilizing others to want to struggle for shared aspirations. And here's the part most people miss. You are always leading somebody in your life. Your team, your family, your kids, your partner, your peers, most importantly, yourself. So if you want to lead others, you must start with self-leadership, aka you have to have it together on your end before you start really helping others. And that means you can clearly understand the mission you're working to achieve and demonstrate it with actionable steps on how to get there. So start with the understanding of what and who you're leading, and you're able to do the actionable steps to get there before you start moving on to the next thing. Start with the basics of what the work is that you're doing. All right, now let's talk about section 2, the leadership mindset shift. New leaders will often ask, well, where do I start? Well, you start with this mindset shift. Leadership is not about being right, it's about being responsible. And that means you're responsible for the environment, the tone, the culture, the clarity, and most of all, the development of your people. Great leaders will stop asking, how do I look? And they'll start asking, how are my people doing? If your leadership style is centered on protecting your ego, you will lose your people. If it's centered on growing them, you'll earn their loyalty. And I will tell you that if you want to grow in your career, start with helping those in your charge first. All right, section 3. There are 5 core tools in this leadership starter kit that we want to talk about. Number 1 is clarity. People don't fail because they're lazy. They fail because they're confused. Great leaders will provide clarity. They'll ask questions like, what does success for us look like? What matters for us most right now? What are the expectations and what are the priorities? Confusion creates anxiety, but clarity creates confidence. If your team is struggling, check the clarity before you check the effort. I will tell you, there are times that I've heard leaders over the years get asked a very poignant question and they dance around it. Like, they don't really give clarity to a very important question. They leave it open-ended, and that just leaves people frustrated. So don't do that. Clarity creates confidence for your people. If you don't know the answer, find it out for them. The second core tool in your toolbox is consistency. People don't trust leaders who are unpredictable. So your mood should not be the culture, and your stress should not be the strategy. Consistency builds psychological safety. That means you don't lead one way on Monday and then Friday you're like somebody else. You don't punish mistakes one day and ignore them the next. You don't play favorites. That's the biggest one of all. Consistency says you know what to expect from me, and that is powerful. All right, the next one is communication. Leadership lives and dies by communication. And I will say this very clearly. Silence is still communication. So if you don't communicate, people fill in their gaps with what they think will work. Rumors will begin to grow. Assumptions spread and morale drops. Great leaders communicate early. They get ahead of the issue. They communicate clearly, often, and then with empathy. And remember, communication isn't just talking, it's listening, it's asking, it's understanding. And the next value is care. People don't leave companies. They leave leaders who make them feel invisible. Care doesn't mean being soft. It means being human. Like I always say, you're human, I'm human, let's be human. Care looks like knowing what matters to your people, asking how they're doing, acknowledging their effort, and giving credit publicly. And then importantly here, when you need to coach, you do it privately. You don't need to be their best friend, but you do need to be someone who genuinely cares about their work and their well-being. I can't say that enough. And then the fifth value here is courage. And this can be the hardest one for all of us, because that means we got to have the hard conversation. We got to give that honest feedback. We got to hold the lines on our agreed values. And we have to admit when we're wrong. This is the thing I see the least from fellow leaders, is they will make a mistake or a misstep and they'll never own it. It's okay to say, I don't know. It's okay to say, I messed that up. I've done it. I've done it recently myself. Weak leaders avoid discomfort. Strong leaders step into it, and they lead with respect and integrity. So section 4 here of your leadership toolkit, common leadership mistakes and how to avoid them. Number 1, trying to be liked. Respect lasts longer than approval. Remember, there's a difference between kind and nice. Mistake number 2, avoiding conflict. Unaddressed issues never disappear, they just get louder. Mistake number 3, doing everything yourself. If you're indispensable, you're failing as a leader. Mistake number 4, leading from fear. This I see a lot of, and it's like, I don't know why we're playing out of somebody's 1984 playbook, but I still see people in different industries leading from fear, which is crazy to me, because that just creates compliance. And trust, on the other hand, will create commitment. So I'm just trying to save you some pain. Avoid being liked and trying to be liked. Avoid avoiding conflict, doing everything yourself, and leading from fear. This is section 5 of your starter kit. Leadership is a daily practice. Leadership is not a switch you turn on at work or at home. It's how you speak when you're tired. It's how you react when you're stressed. It's how you show up when no one's clapping. And it's how you treat the people around you who really can't do anything for you. The best leaders I've known weren't perfect. They were self-aware. They were coachable. They were grounded. They were consistent. And they were human. I think one of the best things that someone has ever told me from a higher up, trust me, I've had equal praise and equal criticism, but one thing that impacted me, I remember a long time ago that I loved hearing, because I wasn't sure of it, was my boss said, you're so coachable. And I was like, wow, okay. Because I kind of think of myself, especially back then in my late 30s, as still being very stubborn. But, that made me feel really good, because it meant that, okay, I am listening to what they're saying. I am improving on their feedback when I wasn't maybe even aware of it myself. So this is your call to action for the episode. I want to have you go through a quick series of questions to reflect on. You can journal this if you'd like. Number 1, how do people feel after interacting with you? Think about that. What kind of wake do you leave after you interact with somebody? And the next one is, what kind of leader do I want to be remembered as? That's a big one. No one's going to be at your funeral talking about your touchdowns and how many goals you scored. They're just not. But you know what they're going to talk about? They're going to talk about how you made them feel. They're going to talk about how you helped them. And then another question is, What's one behavior I can improve this week? Yeah, just one simple thing. I mean, pick anything you want that you think will impact your leadership and the team of people that are working with you. Leadership doesn't change overnight, but it does change the moment you become more intentional. That is my episode. I hope this impacted you for the better. And if it did, please leave me a rating or review. Please hit subscribe so you won't miss another episode of the Leading Life podcast. And remember this, effective leaders highlight their people, not their position. Until next time, I want you to lead with purpose, live with intention, and keep on becoming who you were meant to be. But most importantly, go out today and be the hero of somebody's story. I'm Andy Zook. This is the Leading Life podcast. Thank you for listening. I'll talk to you on the next episode. All right? Take care. Bye.